Welcome to Two Therapists Talking. The hope for this podcast is to talk about important issues related to couples and individuals who are struggling in their lives with many different issues. I'm David Thompson, a marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Sherie Christensen, marriage and family therapist. Please join us as we explore these issues together, and we hope you will learn and be enlightened along the way. Come find us at twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast. Hi, welcome back to Two Therapists Talking. I'm Sherie.
And I'm David.
And today we are going to talk about marriage contracts.
Marriage contracts, which every marriage has legally.
Yeah, right? Yes.
If you're married, but we're talking about the kind of contract where we agree to be together and certain important things are going to happen or the marriage isn't probably going to work. And this often comes after, again, this process of discovery or betrayal and then disclosure and then information. And in time, we work towards a recommitment ceremony, which is really awesome. But somewhere usually between the disclosure process and 5-6 months out for me generally is a marriage contract, which is just a way to say, obviously we struggled in this relationship. Let's just make it really clear how we conceptualize this relationship, what I expect from you, what I need from you, so that everybody's clear. And I call it a contract only because it's like, let's talk about it and you agree or you don't.
Right.
Like I'm not going to say you have to do this thing. I'm going to let you know this is what I need and say, what do you think? How do you feel about it? And you can say, I don't know about that, which is fine because we're in this because we choose to be.
Right.
So.
Right. And you can do negotiating.
Yeah.
Like that. Like, okay, well, I don't know if I could do that, but what about this? Like,
Yep.
This is a little bit more what this means to me, or this is a little bit more how I would want to choose to show up.
So in other words, you're agreeing to meet your partner's needs. We just need to know what those are really clear. We don't want to guess. We don't want to play these games. Often these relationships that come in have drifted so far from what they thought that nobody is really that aware of where their partner is. And
right.
We don't want to do that moving forward. So think reconciliation, healing. We want it crystal clear.
Right. And I like too just the idea this is a great thing to do for couples in therapy in general. When they're kind of struggling with, gosh, where do we go from here? How do we know how to move forward? We haven't shown up very well in the past or in certain ways in the past. How do we want to remedy that in the future? And again, you don't have to, take this down and get it notarized and all of the things, but it's...
I mean, you'd probably take it a little more seriously if you did.
Right. But at the same time, this can be a beautiful discussion at any level and with anyone, even premaritally.
Exactly. I was just going to say, this is a great one for couples coming in who want premarital counseling. So
yeah, just good things to think about. How do you show up? What areas do you want to continue to work on? Those kinds of things.
Right.
So and again, when you decide and you work together on this, and you're like, okay, this is what we think will work. This is what we're kind of agreeing to do, and how we're agreeing to show up for each other in the relationship. It is a commitment, like David's saying, like, well, you just definitely want to take this seriously and you want to be showing up and doing it, not just a nice little talk that you then, forget about. But also recognition of that everyone is imperfect and we are going to make mistakes.
Right.
But
we do go back to it. Make no mistake.
Yes.
There are often things that happen down the road that we say, hold on, remember the marriage contract?
Yes.
What you did there, what you said there, how you reacted there was not showing up in the ways that we've already talked about. This isn't to beat you up. This is to serve as a reminder.
Yes.
And every time the response is, yeah, you're right. I knew I knew how I was showing up. I knew what they expected and needed. And so the contract can be a helpful foundation. We often define love and trust differently. So,
Yes.
for example, love languages. Everybody's familiar with love languages.
Right.
And you take this test, and there's 5 categories.
I can't even remember.
I know. There's quality time. There's physical
Service.
touch. There's service. There's words of affirmation.
Yeah, I think there's 5, and we can only come up with 4. We're both totally stumped.
Yeah, I'll
here.
think of
We're
it later.
What's
But
the other one? Yes,
it's
we'll
the one that
remember
nobody
after.
ever has.
It's
So-
somebody's listening, going, "That's
Wait a minute.
mine."
That's number 1. And it changes over the course of the relationship anyway. But
Right.
you may be showing up in love with words of affirmation, and your partner's like quality time, quality time, quality time.
Yes.
So this is just a way for everybody to get on the same page. And it's kind of neat to hear from your partner when they say, hey, I've thought a lot about this, and here's what I need.
Yeah.
And we naturally want to meet that need. You tell me what you need, and I want to do it.
Yeah.
And so it's necessary for sure after betrayal, but it's good for any couple anytime.
Right. Yeah. So as we look at this, all of the relationships, any relationship needs honesty, love, and trust. Right. It's the foundation.
Right.
Okay. So what do each of those mean?
In other words, you could have a lot of stuff in a marriage contract.
Right.
Really, right?
Yes.
If we're looking at the
I will
most
have
important,
blueberries brought to me on a tray every day
you
in
better
bed.
remember my birthday and Valentine's Day and holidays. That's fair. But those usually connect back to one of these.
Yes.
Because that thing you do or say is loving or builds trust or just helps the
related to
relationship.
honesty.
Integrity. So
Yeah. So we're kind of talking, when we talk about this marriage contract, we're talking about the basics, the foundation space.
yep.
If you want to go off and stick a bunch of other stuff in there,
Please do.
Yes,
If
that's
you have
on you. Go ahead.
If you have the foundation so well covered
Yeah.
that you can add, that's awesome.
Yes, but we'd love to kind of have you talk about or really focus in on these foundational pieces because, again, like David says, a lot of that other stuff is going to kind of funnel in
Yeah.
to those honesty, love, and trust. And honesty, of course, meaning not being deceitful, not being untruthful, being sincere, integrity, having moral principles, being morally upright.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like honesty, integrity are used a lot, but they mean different things. Mostly
Yeah.
similar things, but if you look up the definition of integrity, it talks about a ship that water cannot get into. So it's
Yes.
watertight. It has integrity. And this is the idea that I have values and morals that I don't follow. So often my behavior and my values are not overlapping. So
Yeah.
integrity is almost a measure of the overlap.
Yes. I like that. Yes. How well are you living your moral beliefs
Yeah.
and principles and values, which would include honesty, which is, again, why we use them sometimes a little bit interchangeably.
Yep.
And especially you could say you're being dishonest about your level of integrity, or you're being dishonest about how your values are showing up and how you're living your values, and then that would be a lower level of integrity, right?
Yeah, I sometimes say it like honesty is telling the truth. Integrity is living the truth. It's who you are. Anybody can tell the truth. Not everybody lives with morality or with values.
Yes, I like that. So that's the foundation that we're looking at as we go through these. And obviously it's necessary. I mean, maybe it's not obvious for people, but really, if you're going to have a relationship, it is kind of necessary and expected. Not kind of, it's necessary and expected that you're going to be honest.
Yes. Any relationship I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think if you can be, make sure you're just being honest.
Yeah.
Just start with that. You really are not going to go anywhere if you're dishonest. in your relationship. So that's a foundational marriage contract piece.
Agree to
Agree to honesty,
honesty.
being truthful.
Yep.
And that's, I think, includes honesty of, like, there's omission and commission, right? So saying everything that comes out of your mouth should be true, but also, like, are you just kind of not saying anything so that
Right.
X, Y, or Z won't come out?
Right. Right.
Right. Well, you didn't ask me the exact right question, right? Like, we hear
Sure.
that a lot,
Yes.
in therapy. And
Well, why didn't you tell me? Well, you didn't ask.
You didn't ask.
Like, do I need to ask that?
Yes, every single
Yeah.
tiny question. Well, you didn't act out with this or that or that. Like, I didn't know that you did. Well, you didn't ask me that specifically.
Yep.
Right. So just a framework of honesty across the board.
Yes. And then it's helpful. So now that you kind of have this framework of honesty, integrity, there's a couple of questions that we want you to ponder and reflect and write about. Because this is what you will then share. So imagine this is a marriage contract. We're going to have not a negotiation, but a sit down to talk about it.
Yeah.
And you have something written up or prepared. I mean,
Yes.
you don't have to, but it helps a lot to ponder and reflect and write. So there's some things that we want you to reflect on.
Yeah.
So the first, and this is big, what does love mean to you?
Yeah.
Because this means different things to different people. If you ask
Absolutely.
two different people, they won't have the same answer.
Right.
What does love mean to you? Oh, okay. And a really important follow-up to be thinking about as well, how does your partner show up in love?
Right.
So you want to think about attitudes, words, and behaviors. So I hear this all the time, when we do a disclosure and there's a lie detector test as part of this. Well, am I just supposed to test them every 6 months the rest of their lives? Like, I hope not. Because their attitude, words, and behaviors really start showing up. And
Yeah.
we talked about this before. It's an energy thing.
Yeah.
And so really think about it. What is love to me, and how does my partner show up in love?
Yes.
And examples are fantastic. Let me just put it out there.
Yes. Yes.
It helps your partner so much if you can say, like, the other day when this.
Yes.
And you always hear, oh, okay. Because, again, you may be saying, well, I love it when you do things for me. And they have a completely different idea of what that is. Well,
Yes.
don't I go to work?
Right.
Don't I make money? Oh, I was thinking more like when you come home and I'm not home yet, and by the time I get there, the dishes are done.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So good to just kind of detail this out.
Yes. And I love I think also when you're writing about how your partner is showing up, that's going to give you maybe some insights that you may not have realized.
Right.
Like, if your love language is words of affirmation, and as you're writing this, you might notice, oh, wow, they do a lot of acts of service, or they do a lot of physical touch,
Yeah.
or these other things that can help you recognize, oh, interesting, like maybe my partner loves me or showing love to me maybe more than I realized.
Yeah.
So it's a good space, and again, a great space for discussion later. And then the third part again is, how is your partner not showing up in love?
Unfortunately, this tends to be more important when I do this, honestly, only because we're usually on the rebound,
Right.
whichever couple is doing this contract. This is really helpful because there's lots of things that the partner doesn't think isn't being, unloving, but that's how it's
Right.
received. And so this is
Right.
just as important. How does your partner not show up in love? And again, examples.
Yes. Like, oh, you said you're going to be home at this time, and then
Right.
you were
Exactly.
45 minutes
That's
late,
a
and I
great
had
one.
the car, the kids, and trying to do dinner and whatever.
And how you went and just sat down and you were watching TV, and I was
Yes.
exhausted, and the kids had to get to bed, so I started putting them to bed.
And you just
And
stayed
you're
in
just
front of
watching.
the
You're
TV.
watching the game. You're not thinking much of it, but yeah,
Yes.
that's hard for me. That doesn't feel very loving.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I was thinking you were giving me a break, and So this is good. This is good to talk about.
It's such good information to go through. Yes, I love that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have you think about trust questions. So what does trust mean to you?
This is coming off our last episode.
Yes. Yes, go back and listen to that one. We did it this way on purpose. So we'd have a big discussion about trust, and then you can kind of bring that into this space of thinking about what trust means to you and what that looks like. Again, examples. And then how does your partner show they can be trusted?
Yeah.
Great space to go back to our last episode and look at, okay, where did I list all of the spiritual, emotional, financial, sexual, mental, like look at all of those categories and how you rated how safe and trusted you felt, and then look at those examples. Okay, so this is lower here. What does that look like here? This is really great here. So how are they showing they can be trusted? And then how are they showing how are they not showing that they can be trusted?
Right.
So, and then finally, we just want to talk about important expectations that you have for the relationship that aren't currently being met.
I learned the hard way. This is an important part of the marriage contract. I thought I had it figured out with love and trust. But this came up enough that I was like, you know what? It needs its own question where,
yes,
what are expectations you have in the relationship that probably your partner just isn't picking up on? Because again, I wish we were all communicating super clearly like we talk about.
Yes.
But we don't usually. So
right. None of us, right? Like we all struggle with it at times, or everyone kind of comes from their own perspective and they just assume that other people are with them on it instead of recognizing, oh, this other person is very, very different. So remember, as you're coming in with expectations, that the other person may really not know that was an expectation.
And if they had an idea of it, often they're not connecting it back to something about love or trust. It's just a thing. It's not a big deal. But then you hear your partner say, actually, I feel really loved when you do this. And it's like, oh, I did not even... Yes. It's just the garbage.
Yes, exactly. That's totally the example I was thinking
That's an easy one.
Yes.
Low-hanging fruit, the garbage.
Low-hanging fruit, yes. Yeah, exactly.
This is like me.
I expected that I would never have to take out the garbage.
Right.
Yes.
This is like me thinking I'm helping when I point out what could probably be moved or arranged in the pantry. Mm-hmm. All the women listening to this are like, what a tool. Yeah. But I'm like, I'm helping, right? And then my wife, bless her heart, is like, I kind of don't feel loved when you're always telling me what to do with this. It's like,
Yes. Oh, I thought it was being helpful.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. I'm sorry. Let me think about that for a while. So just stuff like that helps a lot when you're doing a contract. But it actually helps to say, hey, this is a contract. Don't sign this if you don't mean it. Like, are we in this together or not? And is this clear? Can you agree to meet these needs? And do you want to? Yes, I do. Right. Where do I sign? It's like, okay, let's talk about this contract. So it's just, again, with everything we talk about, a place to begin, not all of it and not the end. Just a place to begin. And you may add some things to your marriage contract, and that's fine. Right.
And the great thing is what you're signing is to show up in a more loving and trustworthy way, more often than not.
Yes.
Like, this is who and how I want to be in our relationship. And this is what is loving for you, so I want to show up that way.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, happy marriage contracting. And thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Two Therapists Talking. We look forward to sharing more conversations with you. Connect with us at twotherapisttalking.com or email podcast@twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.